Hey guys and gals, tomorrow is your math test. There's a lot of information on your math test, so I hope that you have completed your study guide and you are watching this video to check your answers. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. If you have a question before we start taking the test, you need to make sure you reach out to me and let me explain it to you. All right, so on number one, if you'll ignore that little exponent of 2 for a second, just pretend it's not there. What is the square root of 36? Well, the square root of 36 is 6. And then if you think, okay, well now, what is 6 squared? So the 6 squared is 36, right? So the square root of 36 squared is 36. Okay, so basically what an exponent of 2 and a square root do is they cancel each other out, basically. All right, number 2, simplify. What is the cubed root of 27? What number times itself 3 times is 27? The answer is 3. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. All right, number 3, find the length of the right triangle's hypotenuse. So basically, this is a right triangle, and the longest side of a right triangle is its hypotenuse. So basically, they're giving us this square, and they're telling us the area of the square is 81. So squares, all the sides are the same. So what number times itself is 81? Well, that would be 9. So 9 times 9 is 81. And so that's how you figure out what the length of this hypotenuse of this right triangle is, by finding the square root of the area of the square. Now, this isn't on your study guide, but I did want to show you this type of question. All right. So similar question, but a little bit more work to do on this one. So on this one, it tells us the area of the square is 25 inches squared. So since it's a square, we know that all the sides are the same length. So what would be the sides or the dimensions of the square? What number times itself is 25? Well, that will be 5 and 5, right? Square root of 25 is 5. So that means this square, this side right here is 5, okay? And you find that by finding the square root of the area of the square. So now that you know all 3 sides of this triangle, what is the perimeter of the triangle? So you just add together 3 plus 4 plus 5, and we get 12. Okay, so on the test tomorrow, it's more similar to this question than the original one, although that's a great question as well. Okie dokie. Number 5, a city park has a square courtyard with an area of 324 square feet. What is the distance around the park? All right, so got to read these questions carefully, correct? So if it's a square, pretend I can draw a square. The area is, so in other words, this side times this side is 324, right? So to find x, we find the square root of 324. So I'm just going to use my handy dandy calculator. I'm going to type in the square root. So I'm typing my second button and then my x squared button. So my radical is flashing on my screen. So I'm typing in 324 and I get 18. So each side of the square is 18. 18 length, 18 width. And then the question is, what is the distance around the courtyard? This says park, this says courtyard. It should say the same thing, whatever. All right, so all 4 sides is 18. So basically to get the perimeter of this square, we're going to multiply 18 times 4. So the answer is 72 feet. Okie doke. All right, number 6. All right, number 6, plot negative square root of 46, or the opposite of the square root of 46 on a number line. So ignore that for just a second. So I want to think, okay, between what 2 whole numbers would I find the square root of 46? Well, I know that 49 is a perfect square. And I know the one before 46 would be 36 is a perfect square, right? The square root of 36 is 6. The square root of 49 is 7. So the square root of 46 has to be 6 point something, 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 something. And in fact, I could just put it right in my calculator. And my calculator says it is 6.7823, blah, 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 blah. So now we want to know the opposite of that number. So I would put the spot for the opposite of the square root of 46 between -6 and -7 right there. Okie dokie. And you can have a negative sign with a square root outside the radical. But remember, when that negative sign is inside the radical, it has no solution. All right, let me see. Let me get rid of all my stuff here. Number 7, are the following correct? Provide a mathematical explanation for each of your answers. Well, I know that square root of 5 and square root of 5 is 25. And this is asking what's the opposite of square root of 5. So this is not right. First of all, this has no solution. But the answer would be the opposite of the square root of 25, right? Because I can multiply those radicals together. And this is just like saying -1 times +1 is -1. All right, letter B, X can be both +12 and -12. Does +12 squared equal 144? And does -12 squared equal 144? Yes. So this is correct. This is a good answer. All right, what about letter C? The square root of -121 is -11. No, you cannot have a square root with a negative under the radical. You cannot. If it had a little 3 right there, that would have a good answer, but not a square root. So this is not true. And then D looks like a trick question to me. I think the answer is yes. I'm just going to put it in my calculator just to make sure. The square root of 0 is 0. That's true. I thought it was trying to trick us, but I think we're good. If you're ever in doubt, throw it in your calculator. All right, guys. All right, number 8. What is the solution to this? What number times itself is 256? Well, once again, so basically to find out what this X is, I'm going to find the square root of both sides, right? So my calculator, I'm hitting the second button. I'm hitting the X squared button. So my radical is now flashing on my screen. And the square root of 256 is 16. But remember, square roots, there's actually 2 answers because -16 squared is also 256. Okay. If I put that in my calculator, though, I would have to put that in parentheses. So be careful. So positive and -16 is the correct answer. All right, so did we talk about repeating decimals? I think so. If you have one number repeating, the denominator is a 19. If you have 2 numbers repeating, like 0.52, 52, 52, there's 2 numbers repeating, the denominator would be 2 9s. If you have 3 numbers repeating, the denominator is 3 9s. So since a 7 would be repeating one number, the answer is 7 9s. And if you want to check that out, divide 7 by 9 and you'll get 0.77777 on your calculator. All right, what about these? Number 10, this is asking what is 4 times 4 times 4? Or I could simply put that in my calculator, 4 caret, remember the caret symbol, 3, and my answer is 64. I think, let me double check. Yeah. All right, remember, do y'all remember the rules for exponents? What's anything to the 0 power? Anything to the 0 power is 1. If you're not sure, put it in your calculator. Number 2, you want to make sure if you put it in your this in your calculator, number 12 and 13, you have to type it in exactly the way you see it on the screen here. But I know a negative number to an odd exponent is going to give me a negative number anyway. Once again, that's an odd exponent. So I know both of these numbers are going to be negative. So -2 raised to the 5th power is -32. And -5 raised to the 3rd power is -125. So be careful using your calculator. Make sure you put it in exactly right. All right, number 14, we are going to raise 3, A is 3, 3 to the third power minus 4, B is 4, plus 7. I could type that right in my calculator the way I see it. I know 3 to the third is 27 minus 4 plus 7. I know that 27 minus 4 is 23, and 23 plus 7 is 30. Is that right? Please tell me I'm right. 3 to the third power minus 4 plus 7. Yes, 30 is the right answer. Number 10, the U.S. has a total of blah, 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 acres of land reserved for state parks. So we're going to move our decimal how many places? 7 places to the right. This is a great big number because that's a positive exponent, right? So 2916, that would be moving it 1, 2, 3, 4 places, 5, 6, 7. So from here to the end is 7 places. So make sure you add those commas so it's easy to read. So 12,916,000 acres of land. It's a lot. All right, what about this number in scientific notation? Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to have 1 digit in front of that decimal. Remember this? And then write all your non-zero number. When you get to only zeros, you can drop them. And it's always times 10 to a power. Well, what is that exponent? First of all, this is a big number, so it's a positive exponent. And it was, and we moved it from back here up to here. So we went up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. So that's it, guys. Number 17, to travel to California and back, a person in a car needs to travel, blah, 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 blah. If a person travels at a speed of, how long will it take him to get to California? All right, so that's like saying, hey, I got to go 500 miles. I can drive 50 miles per hour. How many hours would it take? What would you do? You would divide. So we're going to say 2.4 times 10 to the third divided by 3 times 10 squared. So do you remember how to put your calculator in scientific notation mode? You're going to go to mode. You're going to go down and to the right and hit SCI. You're going to hit enter. To get off of that screen, you hit clear. Now we're going to type in 2.4. We're using the time 10 to the power button. I'm going to type my 3. Oh, sorry. I meant to tell you to make sure you use parentheses. If you don't, you're going to get the wrong answer. All right, make sure you right click to get out of that exponent and parentheses. I'm typing divided by, I'm doing parentheses, 3, I'm using my times 10 to the power button. My little 2, I'm ending my parentheses, and my answer is 8 times 10 to the 0 power, okay? Since it says scientific notation, this is the only acceptable answer. This is equal to 80, but it wants your answer in scientific notation. All right, if you don't want to do all that, you can just divide 2.4 if you just have a regular calculator. You could go ahead and divide 2.4 times 3. I'm sorry, 2.4 divided by 3, and I get 0.8. And then remember our rules for dividing exponents, you subtract those exponents. So I get 10 to the first power. Then we got to make sure we have one non-zero number in front of the decimal. So we would move our decimal to the right. And remember what Lars says, left add, right subtract. We moved it right 1 place. We would subtract 1 from 1. And that's where our 10 to the 0 would come from. Okie dokie. All right, moving on. Oh, there's a couple more on this page. All right, number 18, since we have 3 exact expressions being multiplied together, we're going to leave that in parentheses, and our exponent is a 3. Okay. Oh, and they wanted to solve it. Okay. So anyway, if I multiply -6 together 3 times, I'd get -216 times c to the, add up all those ones, 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. That's the answer. Okie dokie. All right, number 19, I'm going to multiply my coefficients of 12 and negative 7. So 12 times negative 7 is negative 84. Negative 84. And what happens with those exponents when you multiply two numbers that have the same base? You add them. You add them. So 6 plus 5 is 11. So that is a good answer. All right, number 20, remember that you need to distribute that 5. You multiply every exponent by 5, even if you don't see an exponent and it's a 1. So 1 times 5 is 5. And once again, 1 times 5 is 5. So the answer is j to the 5th, k to the 5th. J to the 5th times k to the 5th. All righty. And then number 21. We're having division. So the rule is you subtract those exponents. So make sure if you don't see an exponent, it's a 1. So 4 minus 1 is 3. And that d stays in the numerator because there's many more d's in the top than the bottom, right? So those two will cancel each other out and we're left with 3 d's in the numerator. All right, number 22, we're going to distribute that negative 5 to everything. So negative 5 times negative 4 is positive 20. Negative 5 times 6s is negative 30s. Bring everything else over. We're going to combine like terms. So negative 30s combined with negative 1s, negative 30 minus 1 is negative 31s. All right, now we want s by itself. So we're going to get rid of positive 20. To get rid of positive 20, you subtract 20. So this is gone. We bring down negative 31s equals 82 minus 20 is 62. And then the last thing we do is divide by negative 31. So s is equal to a positive divided by negative is a negative, negative 2. And that is the answer for s. S is negative 2. How you guys feel about that? Gosh, this test is a lot, you guys. It's a lot. Put a lot on this test. All right, 23. We're going to distribute those fractions to everything in our parentheses. So 3 times a third, or a third of 3 is 1, right? 3 times 1/3 is 1. So 1 times x is x. And then a third of 9, in other words, 9 divided by 3 is 3. So it's negative 9 divided or multiplied by 1/3 is negative 3. Got it? All right, what's half of 2? What's half of 2x? 1x. And what's half of negative 6? Half of negative 6 is negative 3. So when I simplify, I say, oh, these match exactly. So no matter what I put in for x, I'm always going to get a true answer. So this is an infinite number of solutions, infinite solutions. All right, number 24. Let me get rid of all this chicken scratch. Once again, we're distributing, distribute, 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 distribute. So we got 12x minus 36 is equal to 12x plus 36. Oh, look at that. Our variables match, but the rest of it doesn't. So if I got rid of those 12x's by subtracting, I'm going to get negative 36 is equal to positive 36. Is that true? No. If you end up with a statement that's not true, you have no solution. No solution. All right, moving on, everybody. In solving the following equation, circle the step or steps that is incorrect. So the first step would be to say 15x plus 21 minus 6 is 30. So this is right. So my next step would be to combine like terms, right? So 21 minus 6 is 15. So I like this. All this looks good. So then the next step would be to get rid of plus 15 by subtracting 15. So 30 minus 15 is not 45. Nope, it isn't. All right, so this is the part they messed up on. Right here. Step 3 has the first mistake because this should be 15, right? And then we're going to solve it correctly. So since I liked this first step, this is where I'm going to start from. 15x plus 21 minus 6 is 30. We know that 21 minus 6 is positive 15. So now I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. So we get, that's gone. I get 15x equals 15. Last step is divide by 15. And x is actually equal to 1, not 3. Wrong. All right, rational and irrational. So remember what rational numbers are. Numbers can be written like fractions. So whole numbers, fractions, terminating or repeating decimals, right? So anytime you see a pi symbol, it is irrational. Why is it irrational? It's a non-repeating, non-terminating number. Okay, if it's irrational, that's always the explanation. 30 is a rational number. 30 over 1 can be written in fraction form. All right, what about the square root of 57? Is that a perfect square? No, it's not a perfect square, which makes it irrational. If you're not sure, put it in your calculator. If you do, you're going to see that this is a non-repeating, non-terminating number. All right, what about this repeating decimal, 0.323232? We have 2 numbers that repeat, so we can use a denominator of 2 9s. So we could write this 32 over 99. Well, guess what? That's a fraction, which makes this rational. Can be written in fraction form, or you could write it's a repeating decimal. Repeating decimals are rational. All right, what about this decimal that goes on and on and on and on and on in no particular pattern? Well, that's irrational. Why? Because it's a non-repeating, non-terminating decimal. Non-repeating, non-terminating decimal instead of number. That would be a better term. Decimal. And what about a fraction, 5 9ths? This is going to be, if I divide 5 by 9, guess what I get? Repeating 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. So it's a fraction, so it's rational. You could say it's a repeating decimal, or you could say it can be written in fraction form, which actually it is written in fraction form. So those are all good answers. I hope you got them all right. All right, number 27, 5 to the 4th times 5 to the 2nd would be 5 to the 6th, right? You add those exponents, but then when it's a power raised to a power, you're multiplying exponents. 4 times 2 is 8. So we know that 5 to the 6th is less than 5 to the 4th raised to the 2nd power. Got it? All right. 1 is shipping a fishing rod to a customer in a rectangular box. He needs to make sure the fishing rod will fit in his box on the diagonal. So basically, he's got this box, right? The longest part of a box is putting it in diagonally from the bottom corner to the top corner across. So that diagonal measures the square root of 10. If his fishing rod is 2.6 meters long, will it fit inside the box? Well, there's 2 things we could do. We can either say, what's the square root of 10? We can put that in our calculator, which is probably the easiest thing to do. So I'm hitting second, I'm hitting x squared, I'm hitting 10, and then I'm hitting the double arrow button. And I see the square root of 10 is 3.162, blah, 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 blah. So if my space is that long, can I fit a fishing rod that long in it? Yes, it will fit. It will fit because the square root of 10 is greater than 2.6. The other thing I could do is I could square 2.6. 2.6 times 2.6. So 2.6 squared is 6.76. And since I need to fit it in an area, so basically, I don't do this, just do this. I don't want to confuse you. Just find the square root of that radical. And if that answer is bigger than the fishing rod, then the fishing rod will fit. If that number is smaller than the fishing rod, then the fishing rod will not fit. All right, 2 students. So which one's correct? So if we distribute, we get 12x minus 12 minus 3. So that line's good. Uh-oh, look what they did. What did they do here? Did they multiply 3 times 4? Nope, they added. So this is not right. So as long as the student did everything else right, so negative 12 plus negative 3 is negative 15. And then they add, to get rid of plus minus 15, they added 15 to both sides, which is a little confusing the way it's written, but that's correct. And so this person is right. This person is not right because they added 3 and 4 instead of multiplied. All right, number 30. Which expression has no solution? Well, this has a real solution of negative 5. You cannot have a, oh, by the way, this is not on your study guide. The one on your study guide wasn't a great question. It didn't have any integers written, but these are good questions for your test, all right? So I added 2, I think 2 questions. Which one has no solution? This one has no solution. You cannot have a negative under a square root. You can with the cubed root, that's okay, but not a squared root. And then 31, which equation has only one solution and why? So what number squared is 25? Or what number to the 3rd power is negative 125? Well, what could I put for x here? What number squared is 25? Well, I know that 5 squared is 25, right? That also isn't negative 5 squared 25. So technically, the answer to this one is positive and negative 5. However, there's only one number times itself 3 times, that's negative 125. So it'd be negative 5 times negative 5, which is positive 25. But if I multiplied negative 25 by, positive 25 by negative 5, I get negative 125. So this one only has one solution. That's it. All right, you guys, I hope that helps. I hope you look over this again before your test. This is a lot of information, too much for one test, in my opinion, but no one asked me. So y'all have a great day. If you have any questions, please tell me before you start taking your test and let me help you. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow for your test.